Let me just ask you something to get started. What if every harsh, angry word that came out of your mouth didn't just disappear into the air? What if it actually left a physical mark, a real scar on the world around you? What would your life look like?
Well, that idea brings us right to the main character of our story. He's a young man who's about to find out the answer to that very question. See, by all accounts, this guy was a good person, a good heart, meant well, all that. But he had this one huge problem. A temper that would just explode out of nowhere. It was like this sudden, violent storm. And after it passed, he'd look around and realize he'd pushed everyone who cared about him away, leaving him feeling totally alone and just full of regret.
Now, his father sees this struggle. He sees his son's loneliness, and he decides he has to do something. But he doesn't sit him down for a lecture. Nope. He comes up with this really unusual, very hands-on solution.
The plan was simple, but kind of brilliant. The father just hands his son a hammer and a big bag of nails and says, here's the deal. Every single time you lose your temper, you have to walk out to the garden and hammer one nail into this fence. A physical consequence for an emotional outburst. And just like that, the young man started. He took his father's challenge, probably not really understanding what this strange task was all about or where it was going to lead him.
So, day one. Wow, that fence took a serious beating. He hammered in a staggering 37 nails. 37! Each nail marking a separate moment where he just lost control.
But then, something started to change. You could literally see it happening. Over the next few weeks, the number of nails he hammered each day started to drop, and drop fast, from that crazy 37 on day one, down to about a dozen, and then, eventually, down to 0.
And that's when it hit him. He had this big aha moment. The pure physical effort of hammering all those nails, it was exhausting. And he slowly realized, you know what? It's way, way easier to just take a breath and control my temper than it is to do all this work.
Finally, he hit that huge milestone. An entire day passed, from morning till night, and not once did he lose his temper. The hammer stayed put, the nails stayed in the bag. He'd actually done it.
So he goes running to his father, so proud of himself, but his father tells him, hold on, the work's not done yet. In fact, the second, and maybe the most important part of this whole thing, was just about to begin.
The new task was basically the reverse of the first one. For every single day that he kept his cool, he was allowed to go out to the fence and pull out one of the nails. It was time to start the repairs.
So, weeks go by, and day by day, he's out there, pulling out those nails one at a time. The fence, which was once just covered in metal, slowly started to clear up, and finally, that day came when he pulled the very last nail out of the wood. The fence was empty again.
He runs to his father, holding that last nail, totally thrilled. He's finished. But his father just calmly leads him back out to the garden one more time, to stand in front of that fence for the final lesson. His father praised him, saying, "You've done so well, my son. I'm really proud of you. But look really closely at the fence. Tell me, what do you see?" And as the son looked, he finally understood. Yeah, the nails were all gone, but the fence was just riddled with holes. It was scarred, and it was pretty clear that it would never, ever be the same perfect fence it was before. And that's when his father delivered the final, powerful truth. He said, "Words spoken in anger leave wounds just like these holes. You can say you're sorry, you can pull the nail out, but the scar, that hole, it's always going to be there." And that's the whole lesson, isn't it? The damage from our words isn't temporary. An apology can definitely help, but it doesn't just magically erase the wound. A verbal scar is every bit as real and sometimes just as permanent as a physical one. So that leaves all of us with a pretty important question to think about. Yeah, the nails can be removed. An apology can be made. But the holes? They're the things that tell the real story. So it's worth asking ourselves, what holes are we leaving behind in the people we care about?
Sound familiar? You're parked in front of your books, you're putting in the hours, but it feels like you're reading a foreign language. It's just not sinking in, and you feel stuck, maybe even a little hopeless, especially when it seems like everyone else is cruising along. It's a really common feeling, but what if I told you the problem has absolutely nothing to do with how smart you are? That's right, the problem isn't you, it's your method. Things like having a wandering mind or forgetting stuff right after you learn it, those aren't character flaws. They're just signs that your technique isn't working for you. And the good news is, we can fix that. Today, we're going to walk through 5 simple steps that will totally transform your method. And trust me, that's going to transform everything. Okay, so step 1. This is all about prepping your mind. Before you can absorb anything new, you need a clear space to put it. This section is all about getting that mental clarity and zeroing in on the here and now. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You sit down, ready to be productive, and then bam, your mind is just a storm of other stuff. Worries, to-do lists, that weird video you just saw. It's literally impossible to learn anything when your brain is a whirlwind. So how in the world do you calm that storm? Well, it boils down to something called the muddy water rule. I want you to picture a glass of water filled with mud. If you keep shaking it, it stays cloudy, right? You can't see through it at all. But if you just let it be still, the mud naturally settles to the bottom and the water becomes clear. Your mind works the exact same way. You can't force it to be clear, you just have to give it a chance to settle. And here's the best part. Putting this into practice is incredibly simple. Before you even open a book, just stop. Close your eyes for 5 minutes. That's it. Don't try to fight off your thoughts. Just notice them and focus on your breathing. In and out. Just let that mud settle. It sounds small, but this little bit of stillness creates the clear headspace you need to actually learn. Okay, so your mind's a little calmer. The water's clearing. But then another problem pops up. Your brain starts to wander off. You're replaying a mistake from yesterday, or you're stressing about an exam that's weeks away. How do you pull it back and keep it locked on what's right in front of you? The answer is to really tap into the power of right now. Seriously, the past is done, the future isn't here yet. The only time you have any actual power is in this exact moment. Think of your focus like a candle in a huge, dark room. It can only light up what it's right next to. Your only job is to gently, without judgment, bring your attention back to that one single flame, the paragraph you're reading, the equation you're solving, right now. So, now that your mind is clear and you're in the present moment, we've got to talk about how you're actually taking in information. This next idea, it is a total game changer. Let's get into our second section. So, I've got to ask you a question. When you sit down to learn something, are you a rock or are you a sponge? And I know it sounds a little silly, but this metaphor really gets to the core of what works and what just leads to frustration. Think about it. The rock method is all about memorizing. You're just trying to force-feed yourself facts. Information kind of hits your brain and just slides right off, like water on a rock. It's stressful, you forget it almost immediately, and it feels like a total chore. But the sponge method? That's about understanding. You actually absorb the information, it becomes a part of you, and learning feels less like work and more like a cool discovery. So how do you become a sponge? It's all about engaging with the material. Don't just read the words on the page. Actively try to connect new ideas to stuff you already know. Use your imagination to visualize the concepts. Ask yourself, okay, how does this apply to my actual life? When you build those connections, you're weaving a strong mental net that really holds on to the new information. And that idea of engagement leads us perfectly into our third principle, which is designed to fight one of the biggest enemies of learning, just being totally overwhelmed. We've all been there. You look at a massive chapter or a huge project, and your brain just goes, nope, and shuts down. Yeah, that feeling of dread, that sudden urge to go clean your room or do literally anything else but start, that's a signal. Your brain is telling you that the task in front of you is just too big. You're trying to swallow it all in one bite, and that's the perfect recipe for procrastination. So the secret is to divide and conquer. I mean, you wouldn't try to break a giant log in half with one swing, right? You'd split it into smaller, more manageable pieces first. You got to do the same thing with your studies. Take that massive chapter and break it down into single ideas or even just single paragraphs. Focus completely on one tiny piece, master it, and then, this is key, take a short break to let your brain recharge. This method not only kills boredom, it builds this incredible momentum that makes you want to keep going. All right, so we've cleared our minds, we're learning like a sponge, and we're breaking down big topics into small wins. So what's the glue that holds all of this together for real long-term success? It's the most powerful principle of them all, consistency. Let's be real. Cramming for an exam is like trying to grow a plant by flooding it with a fire hose once a month and then ignoring it. It just doesn't work. The plant drowns and your brain gets completely burned out. Real growth, real mastery, that comes from watering the plant a little bit every single day. Small, consistent efforts create low stress and amazing, long-lasting results. And what does daily effort even mean? You might be thinking you don't have time, but get this. It can be as simple as 20 minutes. That's it. Just 20 minutes of focused, consistent study every day will build a foundation of knowledge so strong, no all-night cram session could ever come close to matching it. It's not about running a marathon the night before the race. It's about the daily jog. So let's bring this all home. What we've talked about, these aren't just study hacks. They're really a blueprint for a whole new way of looking at what you're capable of. This is your new beginning. And remember, you don't have to change everything all at once. True, lasting change never happens in one giant leap. It happens by taking one small step, and then another, and another. All those great achievements you admire, they're just the result of a long series of small, smart, consistent steps, exactly like the ones we've covered today. Ultimately, what it all boils down to is this. Success isn't really about luck, and it's not about being born a genius. It's about the methods you choose to use, the focus you decide to build, and the consistency you practice. Success is a choice you get to make every single day. So as we finish up, I'll leave you with this one question. Forget about the entire staircase for a minute. What's your first small step going to be? Today, will you take 5 minutes to just sit and let the mud settle? Will you try studying like a sponge for just 20 minutes? The choice is yours, and your journey starts right now.